You might have once heard the phrase, most of us know how to say nothing, few of us know when. And no one knows the right time to stay silent better than musicians. Have you ever just been listening to a song, fully immersed in the lyrics, the sounds, everything, and then suddenly, there's nothing? It's almost as if the artist took the breath of the music away. Musicians use the aspect of silence a lot. I mean, there's so many symbols for it. Here's a rest symbol, there's another one, and on and on. In the world of sound, there has to be a space saved for no sound. In fact, there's a Japanese term called ma that perfectly describes this empty area in music. Ma can be translated to space or pause, and it places extra emphasis on emptiness, not just in music, but in all art forms. Take a look at this photo. And this photo. This photo too. All three of those images are great visual examples of ma. That's because the negative space, the area around the objects in focus, was what made the images so visually interesting, not necessarily the subjects. And this concept may just apply to music the most. Some of the greatest artists ever have voiced their agreement with this sentiment. The great Miles Davis once said, "In music, silence is more important than sound." Mozart stated, "The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between." And Claude Debussy basically repeated what Mozart said by saying music is the space between the notes. You know it's true when you hear three of the greatest minds of music ever all share the same opinion. But did you notice how two of the people mentioned were classical composers? If you've listened to classical music before, you've most likely heard some great examples of ma. The best composers know that the amount of space you put between notes is just as important as the notes you choose. For example, listen to this. Do you know what song uses those notes? If you have a keen ear, you might. But watch what happens when I space these notes out and turn them into chords. Do you recognize it now? It's Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune, and it's a great example of how just adding a gap between notes can create so much emotion and tension. But spacing gaps alone only cover half of the idea of ma. What about pure silence? In a song, there are three areas that silence can be placed. The beginning, somewhere in the middle, and the end. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, the most common is the end. Ending a song with silence leaves room for the listener to reflect on what they just heard. Take 505 by the Arctic Monkeys for example. There's a brief moment of pure silence at the end of the track after the instrumental has fizzled out, and it allows for the listener to truly grasp what they just heard. There are no more drums, no more guitar, no more vocals or lyrics to focus on. All of the emotions evoked from the song get brought to a standstill, and you're just left alone with your own thoughts. Or maybe you just skipped whatever song came next. The other two locations silence can be placed are the beginning and the middle of a track. It's safe to say the placement of silence here is meant to generate excitement or anticipation from the listener. You might have seen some videos online of mute challenges at concerts. It's when there's a moment of silence in a song, and the crowd's job is to stay completely silent. But you can easily tell that the audience is brimming with excitement, waiting for the song to resume. They're excited for what comes next. It's human nature to be impatient, and musicians take full advantage of this. Placing a brief moment of silence right before a beat drop or a climactic moment is the most common example. You can see artists do this in pretty much every genre of music. The instrumental is continuously built up, and then just like that, it's taken away. But what if the whole song was silence? What happens then? Why would an artist even make that? Is it even music? This is 433 by pianist John Cage. A piece where he doesn't play a single key on the piano for a total of 4 minutes and 33 seconds. There's a video on YouTube of pianist William Marks performing it with over 9 million views. And like advertised, he doesn't even touch a single piano key. So what's the deal? Well, the motivation behind the song can be summed up with a simple phrase from John Cage himself. He once said, "Everything we do is music." After the piece was premiered all the way back in 1952, it was met with anger from the audience. It seemed to them that it must have been a joke or some kind of prank or trick. But Cage defended the song. He offered some words after the event.
They missed the point. There's no such thing as silence. What they thought was silence because they didn't know how to listen was full of accidental sounds.
Cage believed that true silence didn't actually exist. What does this mean? Well, when silence dawns on a song, what do you hear? The truth is, you never actually hear nothing. There will always be some sort of sound hitting our ears. You end up hearing your own environment. Maybe it's birds chirping in the morning, the sound of a distant conversation, or maybe the sound of your air conditioner. And this principle is what John Cage took advantage of in 433. Silence allows for every listener to have a unique experience, whether it's meant as a moment for the audience to reflect on their thoughts, or as a moment meant to emphasize the motion of the music. Each and every person will interpret and hear it a different way, and that's the beauty and power of hearing absolutely nothing.